Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our final in-person. We'll continue online next week, but our last in-person TTR for the spring semester. Today's session is She's Got Game, a playbook on gender, identity, and athleticism. Michelle Zaldivar, your program manager here at the Office of Global Learning Initiatives. TTR is our flagship discussion series that brings together multiple perspectives on current global issues and trends. You can learn more about TTR, watch past recordings, or come back and reference this one at go.fiu.edu/TTR. If you haven't already, please take a moment to sign in using this QR code. It was posted at the front and again up here on the screen in front of you, and it'll continue in the next couple slides. But this is where we'll capture attendance. So whether you're here for honors college engagement points, global learning medallion points, or credit from your professor, or your involvement with the center, the Women's Center, we're glad you're here joining us today. We'll also have some roaming mics when it comes to audience participation. I'm sure we'll get a chance to ask some questions and get some of your own feedback and experiences. So we ask that we please wait for the roaming mic to come to you to be able to do that, because the importance of these mics is it's the only way we're going to capture the sound on the recording. So Tuesday Times Roundtable is brought to you in kind of a partnership with the New York Times, and that's because as an institution, FIU students, anyone with an @fiu.edu email address has access to a free digital subscription of the New York Times. So you can read this week's article. We'll have to update this slide. It's actually at go.fiu.edu/TTR0319, which is today's date. So it'll be TTR, today's date, 0319. And if you get there and you hit a paywall, we absolutely have you, because if you go to accessnyt.com, use your @FIU email address to set up your subscription, you'll get free digital access until the year that you graduate. So that extension, and I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about the article today as well. You can read that article again at go.fiu.edu/TTR0319. As always, my medallion students, TTR is 1 point. Make sure to take a screenshot of the confirmation of your sign-in so that you can use that on your verification column. If you want to learn more about the Excellence in Global Learning Medallion or any of the other undergraduate programs that we offer at the Office of Global Learning Initiatives, feel free to hang out after the session. You met some of our graduate students up in the front. Our senior program coordinator, Janeri over here, was welcoming you as well. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. This secondary QR code will get you to follow us on Instagram, where we promote all of the events and ways that you can complete the medallion. And one of those things that we absolutely encourage students that want to get involved on campus that is open right now is the Millennium Fellowship. So if you'd like to join a worldwide group of undergraduate students through the Millennium Fellowship class of 2024, applications are due March 31st. As a Millennium Fellow, you'll join a global community of change makers and receive support from the UN as you work on your passion project and learn from global social impact leaders. Applications are project-based and aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Again, deadline to apply is March 31st. And if you'd like any application support that is available to you through our office, you can shoot us an email at glmetal@fiu.edu. Today's session I am so excited for. It is in honor of Women's History Month, right? Celebrations that are happening all across campus. Leading our dynamic session today, we welcome Program Manager for the Women's Center and from the Centers of Student Engagement, Brittany Davis. Brittany is a graduate of Florida International University with a Master of Science in International and Intercultural Education and a graduate certificate in African and African Diaspora Studies. She is an advocate for gender equity, accessibility, and representation in higher education to support students' transitions and achievements. Ms. Davis is a doctoral candidate in the PhD in higher education at FIU with a research focus on institutional and non-performative, I'm gonna drop myself on that one, performativity in response to national racialized indices and practices of anti-Blackness within higher education. She's also a lecturer in the African and African Diaspora Studies program. She's joined today by a panel of collegiate athletes and coaches. Thank you all so much for joining us, and please join me in welcoming our full panel and Ms. Brittany Davis.
So wonderful to be here. I know this was something dear to my heart, being a student athlete when I was in high school, but definitely as we continue to celebrate Women Her Story Month, we want to make sure that we're amplifying voices of how women show up in all spaces. So I wanted to kind of start with giving us an introduction, and then I will allow our amazing panelists to introduce themselves. In August 2023, the University of Nebraska's amazing collegiate women's soccer team set a global mark for the largest attendance at any women's sporting event. There were more than 92 fans that filled the stadium. Let us not encapsulate this moment in just the increase of viewers or attendees, but in understanding how women's sports and female athletes continue to reclaim their time and the narrative of women's sports. It is often perceived as deviant, given how women challenge gender norms, but it demonstrates our continued struggles for gender equity and fight against gender discrimination. I think of women such as Billie Jean King, Florence Griffin, popularly known as FloJo, William Rudolph, Athea Gibson, Serena and Venus Williams, Simone Biles, Allison Felix, Lisa Leslie, Caitlin Clark, Angela Reese, and for me, Dominique Dawes, who was the first African-American gymnast to win an Olympic gold medal. We also want to recognize these amazing women athletes here at FIU and amazing coaches who are starting to chart their own journeys. So I will allow our amazing, again, panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll have a dialogue about the ways in which women continue to show up for themselves and others in the sports arena.
I'm sorry. Okay. My name is Fabiola DeClet. I'm part of the women's FIU track and field team.
What year are you?
I'm currently a graduate student. This will be my last year.
Where are you from?
I'm from Puerto Rico.
And what events do you do?
I do the heptathlon, which is multi-events. I do a little bit of everything.
There we go. My name is Ryan Heberling. I'm the head track and field coach and cross country coach here at FIU. I am also an FIU alumni, class of 2009, with a degree in sports sciences. Currently working on finishing up a master's degree in recreation and sport management. I arrived here in 2005, became the head coach here in 2014, and have had the opportunity to be working in women's athletics now for about 15 years. So I'm hoping I can bring my unique experience to this, and I have the opportunity to work with these two young women here as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mikael Valente, but you guys can call me Mick. I do track and field. This is my third year technically, but I just graduated. Now I'm doing my master's in rec and sports management. I'm originally from Haiti, and now I'm in the U.S. Yeah. And I'm a thrower, so.
I'm Savannah Cook. I'm a setter on the volleyball team. I'm a sophomore, and I'm from North Carolina.
My name's Maddie. I'm also on the volleyball team. I'm a sophomore, and I'm from Houston, Texas.
And I'm Justina Robertson. I'm the head volleyball coach here at FIU, originally from Romania, but in the States for over 20 plus years. Happy to be here.
Nice. All right, awesome. So again, thank you all for joining us for this important conversation on women's sports and athleticism. We will be discussing some shifts that we're seeing across women's sports and the collegiate and professional levels, and acknowledge that progress still needs to be made to ensure gender equity across all arenas and spaces that women occupy. So I want to acknowledge this particular New York Times article, which really talks about historically how women have showed up and also fought for gender equality. So my first question for the panel, as we start to think about this a little bit more broadly, but also in the spaces that you all occupy, how has the fight for gender equity in women's sports an extension of the broader conversation on gender discrimination or forms of inequity, and also thinking about how female athletes are reclaiming their voice and power in male-dominated spaces?
You want me to start it off?
Yes.
I don't see anyone running to the microphone. So that's a kind of a very, broad question. I think kind of some of the conversations we had when you kind of look at like the fight for equality and equity in women's sports. I think in the time that I'm almost 40 years old, and I just think about sports and even women's sports as a child and what it looks like back then and what it looks like now. And I think that even 20 years ago, which is not a very long time, the women's sports was always kind of out of context when you saw it on TV. I think one of the things that have driven male sports so much is the fact that it does kind of encapsulate our life experiences, the challenges that the athletes face off the field of play, off the court. And I think that one of the disservices that kind of happened to women's sports, and this was a conversation I was having yesterday, was that men's sports always had the dominant presence on ESPN and sports media, and the fact that we created a story around the game that was being played, the competition that was coming up, the history of what was happening. And I can think about even 5-10 years ago, ESPNW, there was just a game being played. There was no commentary on the background of the story. There was no, this is what's happened. This is their life story. This is the challenges they're facing. Here's the injury they had recently. It was just a game that was hard to find, that was really just out of context. And I think that there was a difficult job to kind of bridge the gap of how does this relate to me? And I think that sports does an amazing job of relating to our everyday experiences. And I don't think that our sports media has done a great job of really bridging that gap. And I think until recently, and I had this conversation with Brittany last week, that there was recently a brawl between two women's basketball teams. I believe it was LSU and I think South Carolina. And that was a lead story on ESPN. And I think that whether the coaches felt it was a good thing or a bad thing or that it was a bad look, I mean, we are seeing now in today's age that women's sports and the stories around the sports that are happening are leading, on some of our major sports media platforms. And I think that right there is something that it brings context to our sports. It brings a story and it brings kind of an image into women's sports that hasn't existed even 10 years ago. And so I think that alone right there is a positive step in the right direction. But there's still always going to be a fight for more. I think that men's sports are never going to stop trying to grow, and I don't think that women's sports should stop either. There should never be satisfaction. So I think that no matter what steps we take with equality and equity within women's sports, it's never going to be enough. And I think continuing to move that conversation forward and being able to create a platform and an outlet for women's sports for the media and for everyone that may not even know it exists. I mean, it might sound bad, but if we can find time for cornhole or bowling on TV, we can find time for women's volleyball, women's track and field, our women's basketball team that just made the WNIT tournament. We can find time to push the stories that are out there, because there is really just this untapped market with massive potential for opportunities, equal opportunities for everyone. So that's kind of where I view that.
Any other commentary? And I am interested to hear, thank you so much, Coach Ryan, interested to hear what inspired some of our students to pursue your particular sports. Where did you draw that inspiration from?
Well, mine's for how I started sports was elementary school. I started seeing a lot of my peers started getting into soccer. And me coming from a family that didn't have a lot of financial freedom, I lacked the same opportunity that they did. So I was never able to start how they was in elementary school. And then when I got to middle school, one of my coaches was trying to recruit me, I guess, to the sport. And he was like, "Mick, did you know that you get a scholarship to go to college for free?" And I was like, "No way. Are you serious?" So then ever since then, I've been doing every single sport that I possibly could to now be in the position that I am right now. So that's how I started sports.
So how I started doing sports, my mom actually was around sports her whole life. She was able to get, she did tennis in college back in Puerto Rico. So I just grew up with the sports background. But just growing up, my mom always said that sports was something, was an outlet to kind of show people what you can do and what you're capable of. So that's kind of how sports started for me.
I would say mine is very similar to yours. Both my parents were athletes. My dad played basketball in college. And I think just from a young age, my parents got me and my sisters into sports. And it was again, an outlet for us to be able to show people what we're capable of and feel that ourselves, I think, prove to ourselves what we're capable of, not only in sports, but in life. So I think that was like a big thing.
Yeah, mine was also very similar because my mom was a volleyball coach, so like having her like encourage me to do sports too, and then having a big sister who also played sports, like I saw her as like my role model, and just ever since then I just always wanted to do everything I could just to be just like her because I just looked up to her.
Yeah, and for me, I know I'm a little older and I am the coach, but coming from Eastern Europe, it's a different perspective to anything that's happening in America, and I'm sure other countries can associate themselves with that. But for me, volleyball opened so many doors that playing sports like got me to where I am today, and created so much opportunity that otherwise I would have never been able to experience and be able to share with everyone else.
So I want to get an opportunity to really speak to some of the trends that we're currently seeing in collegiate sports with participation in collegiate sports, as well as women's leadership in women's sports at the collegiate level, and kind of thinking about the professional level as well. But oftentimes there is a discrepancy among the redistribution of funding for women's sports. So one of my questions is thinking about how has the justification or representation been used as justification for progress as opposed to an increase in resources for women's sports. And this is coming from a recent report from the NCAA that reported that we are seeing increases in leadership and different ways that women show up, but we're not seeing an increase in funding to make sure that women or more female athletes can participate in these sports across different colleges and universities. So any comments or anything with that? I think about these increases and how it impacts the funding for women's sports.
I mean, I feel like, yes, we have grown tremendously, and there's a lot of women playing sports, and there's a lot of opportunity, but I don't think we still have enough women empowered to tackle those sponsorships attached to the men's sports. I feel there's a lot more men who can tackle that sponsorships, because at the end of the day, even the pay and everything else is based on viewership, whatever they show on TV. How many people are watching men's sports versus women's sports. So I think it has been as like, oh, okay, women's sports have increased so much, y'all should be happy that you have that much participation. And then the funding, we need to find more powerful women who can help us with the sponsorships for everything else, and more women watching women events, being participants in the women events instead of going, oh, I'm going to go watch men's basketball, not worry about women's basketball, or I'm going to go watch baseball and not softball. We don't have men's volleyball here, but it's women supporting women. Great.
I think just to kind of comment, there's been some recent initiatives by the NBA and NFL to actually create opportunities for women coaching. That stigma that women coach. And I think our sport is a prime example. We have multiple head coaches, associate head coaches, assistant coaches doing, in coaching men in our sport. I mean, it's been happening for decades. And so I think we've kind of broken down some of those barriers and stigmas a little bit early. But there's always going to be more opportunities. And I think that one of the reasons we haven't seen more of these opportunities in the past is because I think, it wasn't something that was pushed on women as a young age, whereas you have some male, young men that it's like, what are you going to do? I'm going to coach. Like, yeah, you can coach. And I think just kind of, prior to 1972 and the adoption of Title IX, there wasn't really that thought of, hey, you can do this. And if you think about it, it's only 50 years old. That's still relatively young. Yeah. So I think that when it comes to the funding and kind of the participation, obviously, like I said earlier, it's never going to be enough. We always need to fight for more. And I think that the whole thought of if you're not growing, you're dying is very true in women's sports and men's sports. And I think that continuing to fight for some of those opportunities and the battle for equality there is it's going to be at the forefront. And definitely these opportunities, and I am a male, so it does affect me differently, but those opportunities, those opportunities for women in those leadership roles, I think are extremely important. So.
Yeah, No, just a quick question, if you don't mind, Brittany. I'd love to hear from the lived experiences of the athletes as well. So, without naming names, right, and without throwing anybody under the bus, did you ever feel that same tension that your coaches have just captured so well in their descriptions in your own lives coming up? Maybe not in collegiate sports, but on your way up to get to this point.
Well, for me, like I said, I was single sport to pick up. Well, maybe not every single one. I'm being dramatic here, but at one point in high school, I was doing wrestling and volleyball wrestling and soccer at the same time, and I had to practice with the guys because there wasn't a lot of females in there. So I think for me is like not seeing other females in that did not make it attractive for everybody else to, to show up in that way. So of course I had the rest of the guys and I did beat them up. But, after that year, me showing up for wrestling in that way, I was able to bring other people, attract other females to come and do it too and not be intimidated just because they're guys. Because at the end of the day, it's like everybody can learn and grow in that way. So that's one way that I have seen it in my sports.
Only thing that I could really think of is at least here in middle school and kind of high school when it came to the coaches and stuff, you could clearly see that quote unquote the good coaches were coaching the guys, and then we just kind of got stuck with like a teacher that was just there to kind of take care of us. Yeah. So just having that obviously made me kind of go out of my comfort zone and push myself to be better. So that just shows how like even that's not even too long ago. That's probably like 4 years ago. To see that still being a thing kind of made me push myself and be in a position where in the future I could be a leader and advocate for women.
Yeah. Nice.
I'd say for me, like growing up in a small town, like going to like junior high, like all the women's coaches like coached girls and all the boys had like guy coaches. So like seeing that, like you don't really like think about it much because that's like all you see. But then like growing older and like in high school, we had like men's coaches like coaching women's basketball, and then coming to college and seeing like a bunch of like genders like with coaches and like athletes intermix. It really like opens your eyes and like shows you how like some things can be so like one-dimensional almost. So it's kind of like really eye-opening just to see like one person can make that change. So
Yeah, I definitely have similar like experiences in middle school and high school with like only having women coaches or only having like the coaches that really didn't know what they were doing. But I think like thinking about it nowadays, I think when I was younger, I didn't have really like female athletes that I looked up to. Like I didn't like that wasn't showcased to me. But now, like I know you mentioned like Nebraska volleyball had like 92,000 fans at their game, and I was like looking through their social media, and they have so many girls in their stands with like posters and asking for pictures. And I think it just shows like the more media we get and the more we're like shown that there are so many girls that like would look up to us and like give them inspiration to do what we're doing. So
I really want to, you all can kind of speak to just being a student and an athlete. How has that contributed to your ability to lead and still think about you all being representations for other students, who are thinking about being an athlete or also kind of balancing being a student as well? How have you been able to share those experiences? Since I know you are in your latter part of your years with the senior, and I know you're a graduate student, how have you been able to balance being a student and an athlete and being a leader on and off the field?
Yeah, definitely. It takes effort. I mean, it's definitely not easy, especially, college level academics is not easy. So we're having to deal with that. I'm going to talk from my point of view because I do a lot of events, meaning I have more than one practice, and practices literally take up my day. So I've always, when it came down to it, when I saw how my schedule was going to look like and what I had to put in for it, it just came down to, do I want to make a difference? Do I want to make sure that we can show that women can do this, women can deal with both school and sports and do it the right way? So I just looked at myself. I wanted to make sure I could be the best that I could be. I want to be a leader, so I've been coaching. And what I tell the girls on my team is, you can do it. As long as it's something that you really want to do, you just take your time and organize yourself, and it's worth doing it. And I like to motivate them to be able to do it after high school and make a life out of it, whether it's sports or just leading. And just overall, it takes a lot of effort, but if you want to do it, you can do it. But yeah, you have to be willing to do it, because it's a lot. It can get a lot. Speaking on the mental health, that can also take a toll, because we do have a lot on our minds. We have pressure that we put on ourselves that we have to deal with, and we have, big meets. And I don't take it lightly that I'm part of the FIU tracks and field team. Like, I like to set a good example for the people that come behind me. So it's definitely something that you have to deal with, but it's possible.
Thank you.
As for me, honestly, it wasn't something that was really hard for me to get into, I guess. As soon as I started sports, like I said, in middle school, I really got the concept of being a student and an athlete. And you was also always have to be the student first. So for me, it was like really easy because I come from a Caribbean household. I'm Haitian. So I had to have the good grades. So I couldn't come home with bad grades. So it was like, for me, it was kind of like I didn't have a choice. I had to be good at it. So I just had to do it. So, but I think I've, having to grow up so fast really helped with doing what I'm doing right now. So having to take care of my siblings at a very young age and then doing sports just really helped me to, I guess, set my priorities straight. I feel like I really had good time management, and to be a student athlete, you really need to know what that is or develop one, because you have about 2 practices a day, and then you still have classes. I'm online, but many people have to actually go to classes and deal with professors and do homework and all that stuff. And then, it's just a lot in our plates. Like Fabi said, we put a lot of pressures on ourselves and, the sports that we do. And we want to perform. We want to leave the record. We want to, qualify for whatever we want to qualify for. So it's like having a balance to all of that is very important, and it's not easy at all. But like she said, if there's a will, if there's a way, there's a will. Yeah, that one. Yeah, so you definitely can do it. It's doable.
Also, it's really good to have a good team around you, and someone like Mick is really good to have a reason to fight for and like show up to practice every day and do your best.
Amen.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's not easy to balance both things, multiple things. But time management is so important. That's something I kind of had to learn in high school, which was like made the transition easier for me because I played multiple sports and then obviously went to school. So that wasn't as hard, but I think freshman year just really gets you regardless. That's a huge change, especially if you're moving away from home, and like that more affects like mental health, like making sure you're like not homesick all the time, and then you're going to practice, and then you're going to class, and then you're by yourself, and you're like, okay, what do I do now? Now that I'm not busy, it's also a huge thing that when you don't have anything to do, your mind's like racing, and then, okay, I gotta wake up at 5 a.m. for lift or whatever. But I think a big thing that has helped me now is having a good role model around me. My coach, every single day we come into practice, she's like, how are you guys doing? How's school? How's this? Like every single day, does not matter. And that is so important because that is like, seems like such a little thing. Like I'm sure she doesn't even think about it like that, but it like makes you feel so important and feel so cared about. And if you don't if people don't have that around like them, like make sure you're doing that for yourself. Like, how am I doing today? Like, what am I thinking about? How am I doing with this? What can I work on? Or things that you can talk about.
Well, that's like the main thing I was going to say is that I feel like I have a bunch of like support around me. Like even growing up, like my family, like my sisters and my parents were always like pushing me to be the best, like making sure I like have good grades, I do good in sports, and they were like always there to support me. And then like coming into like this program and having like a coach that cares so much, it just like kind of carries over. It's like almost having like a parent there to like make sure like everything's going good. And then it kind of just like makes you want to like prove to everybody else that like this is something you can do and it's something like we're very capable of, and it's like a privilege to like get to show that to people.
They make me sound really good, thank you. But, as a female student athlete, I think it's so important for women. I'm not a man, so I can't say that, but I think it's so important for women to have that support system to, you know, for them to know that someone cares about them, that someone knows their loads, because there's so many coaches that look at the performance parts of it and they don't understand that they have 4, 5, 6 classes a semester. They have lifting, they have volleyball practice, they have a social life. They need to see other people besides their volleyball players. You know, they need to go hang out with the track people who are busier than we are, right? So I think it's important to have people in places to make sure they got their backs as people, not just like performers on the court or field or anything else.
And I'm interested to know, so if there are athletes that are interested in transitioning or conversations about going professional, what does that support in those conversations look like given, and we know some increases, but the biggest thing is pay inequity that often happens for female athletes and in women's sports. So what are some of those conversations with students if there is a desire to seek at the professional level?
I mean, I think for volleyball, it's more of like, obviously, I would love for all of them to go professionally. That would be my dream, like go play pro and kick butt. But it's a conversation, a one-on-one conversation based on what their needs are. As far as leaving the States to go for a professional opportunity, everything depends on the country and how popular the sport is in that country. There's countries who, 2, 3 countries in the world who have the top volleyball leagues, or you have to be extraordinary to be in and you get a great pay. There's countries that volleyball doesn't pay that much, but you still can play at a lower level. But I don't know if you can make a life with, getting the pay from it. So it depends and it varies. And obviously based on sports, what's popular for volleyball varies for track, soccer, and everything else. Luckily, we don't play football because then we couldn't go pro.
I think because Fabi and Mick have had ample conversations, together about going pro. And our sport's so different. It's very, objective of like, do you run these times or do you not? And something that I've noticed recently, like Sha'Carri Richardson, I think I saw somewhere the other day, signed a $20 million contract with Nike. And she has encapsulated this just following of like the example she sets, and then also being extremely talented and kind of meshing the two. So really in our sport, just going pro, it's not even about who you know. It's just, hey, did you do that performance or not? And I think, these two get caught up so much in the performance sometimes that they kind of forget about like, hey, like you're a student, you have a social life, like, like don't put so much stress on yourself. Like they're the ones stressing more than we are. And I think that when it comes to that kind of that pro conversation, I do think there's amazing opportunities. Like Coach Robertson said, there's leagues in once you leave the States. I mean, in America, I think track and field is huge and it still has a lot of growth potential. And especially for the opportunity that they have had to represent their countries in this sport as well. But, it really comes down to is what kind of presence can you have? I mean, it's something so objective now is how many followers do you have? I mean, it's crazy. Like, oh, you have 1 million followers and you do this performance? Oh, okay, you can make this much money. And it's very odd to me, and in the fact that in some of the other more team sports, it's like, okay, how do you fit in here and are you marketable? Nowadays, it's can you gather a following? And I think that the opportunities to go pro can range from getting a pair of shoes to $10 million a year. And it's just finding somewhere in between there. It's, okay, how do you market yourself and how do you prepare yourself to compete? And I think it's in any sport, it's extremely difficult, but those opportunities are there. It's just how well can you do athletically and then market yourself and create a brand.
Yeah. And for the students, how kind of thinking about the opportunities or what that looks like going pro, what are some of the conversations or some of the things that you started to think about if that is something that, you have the desire to do?
I know for me, I'm trying to represent Haiti in 2024, so please pray for me. For me, I always ask my coach, like, Coach, what can I do better? What can I improve on? He's like, Mick, you just need to rest. Resting is very hard for me because I feel like there's always something to do, okay? But I think doubling down to my technique and everything else I need to do. But I know that when I do become a pro, I know that for track and field that I will not be getting a lot of money like for basketball or compared to other sports. I know that's a given unless I can get like 20 million people to follow me. But just working towards the stuff that's important to me is just to be able to represent my country in that big stage and to shine a light to all the girls back home and the people that are looking up to me, to be able to tell them that they can make it to the level that hopefully one day that I get to is my main goal and objective, even though that I know that paying for track and field, and especially being a thrower, is not something that's going to be so hot and popping. So, yeah.
To kind of build on what she was saying, to kind of build on what she was saying, sadly our sport, track and field, doesn't really have like kind of a league how volleyball is. You know how they were saying how even if you go to Europe and you can't make a living out of it, but you still can call yourself, I'm a professional volleyball player. I'm getting paid to just play volleyball, and then you can do whatever you want with your free time. With us is a little bit harder. You kind of have to, like what he was saying about you gotta hit a mark to see if you can get to those big meets. But I think what she was saying, the social media, and for us in track, it's hard because it's like you should also be thinking about marketing yourself in the social media, because that is going to help you get paid and help you get into big meets and stuff like that. But it's also like, what do I focus on? Do I focus on my performance or do I focus on marketing myself? And it's very hard because obviously what he was saying, Sha'Carri Richardson, like she's one of the best athletes in the whole world. Obviously, it's very easy for her to get some sort of sponsorship, but then for people like us that are just trying to like get into that level, it's very hard to get it if you don't market yourself on social media. But it's just it's very hard to find which one is more important and which one's gonna actually get to you faster. So that's definitely a struggle that I think we all face in a way, because like I'll be sitting there and I'll look at my Instagram and I'm like, damn, like should I post something, or like should I have like a drive, or like I don't know. It's like it's hard to see what could help me get to where I want, whether it is doing practice like 5 practices a day or just sitting there and trying to market myself on social media. It's very hard to find which one is more important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it is like a toss up. Like, what do I focus more on? Do I focus more on like actually playing, or do I focus more on like posting a get ready with me on like Instagram or something? Like what she said, playing. But for us, at least with volleyball, like going pro wasn't even really a thought for me like before this year, because I'm a very family oriented person and I don't think I could be that far away in another country from my family for an extended time. I think I would lose it. But there was recently a new pro league, Real Pro Volleyball, that came out, and it's a U.S. league completely, and they're like in different cities now, so go watch it if you guys want. But that has opened like so many opportunities for like women volleyball players that want to play in the U.S., and so that's definitely more of like a topic now, and I don't think you're gonna make a very livable wage off of that, but it is a new opportunity, so that's exciting moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say, especially only being a sophomore, I really haven't thought too much in the future, because I'm like, okay, let's not rush. But it is like pretty like cool that they opened a new league in the like States, which is like a big opportunity for like people who don't want to leave, because I'm also like very family oriented and I just don't want to like go too far. And yeah, I'm just definitely.
Yeah.
I want to at least give some opportunity if we have questions in the audience for our panelists. 'Cause I know we're at 1:10. So if anyone has any questions or anything, definitely encourage you. Oh, we got the mic.
Sweet. I have 2 questions. If you can't get to both of them, I understand. Going back to the camaraderie, that's something just as a student I've always been sort of jealous of student athletes. You guys get to be around other teammates who, kind of go through the same struggles, the same challenges, and even have coaches there to show you some sort of guidance. So my question was for the coaches, if you guys mind going into more detail about the game plan and what goes into leading a group of students in a very delicate time in their life and making sure they not only succeed on the field, but off. And then my second question was, the girls stated, should I focus more on my performance or marketing myself? And I would like to hear you guys' answer to that.
You want us to go first?
Yeah, the coaches. It's for the coaches.
We'll let you guys figure out your
Let's go,
answers.
coaches.
Well, Coach Robertson and I have completely different sports. She coaches a team sport where there is a lot of strategy. There's, a play happens and she can make an adjustment. Fabiola may run 100-meter hurdles, and in the middle of the race, she's not going to look at Coach Sully and say, "What do I do?" Just move, go. And Mick, on the other hand, she does an event where she'll get a chance to do a throw and then talk to me, and it's just kind of different. But I think our ways of kind of creating that strategy is when it is an individual sport where they are really like in control of their performance and not really relying on a teammate in sports psychology. We call it the diffusion of responsibility. It doesn't exist in our sport. Like, it's on you. And so what our biggest strategy is just creating confidence in their abilities, but then also giving them kind of some control when it comes to how they kind of strategize their training. I mean, we're very guilty of every day saying, "Hey, how do you feel? What do you kind of want to do today?" And a freshman looks at us like, "What do you mean you're in charge?" And it's like, not really, we're not going to get out there and do it for you. You're going to do it. So for us, it's really just, and again, like these two are very guilty of it, is just day one of like building confidence of like, hey, you can do this. And that goes for male or female student athletes, men, women, it doesn't matter. Most freshmen come in with this bravado of I can do it, but then in reality, they're like, I can't do this. So, our job is really just to build confidence that, hey, when you're out there, you are in control. And that is one thing that I will say student athletes do a really good job of, is just wanting to be in control. And so kind of giving them the confidence to make those decisions as far as having a foundation of like, hey, you know what? Like I tell, Mick all the time, hey, take a risk today. Take a risk. And, she doesn't like to take a risk. She's very controlled and calculated. And what that kind of means is like, hey, you're in control. Like, you can do this. And a lot of times, if you maybe look at like football, it's like, listen to me. You only do what I say. Like, here's the play. Don't deviate. We kind of encourage some of that deviation sometimes where it's like, hey, like, go for it, And I think that a lot of times in individual sports, you have to build up that confidence and that foundation of just, this is yours, it's not ours. So.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same individual sports, and track and field is a very different sport. You gotta exert yourself to, I don't know how y'all do it. But as far as leading them through delicate times and trying to take care of them, I think it takes genuine care. It takes genuine care from our standpoint, it takes genuine care for them. Because you're never gonna do anything if you don't care enough. If you want to get an A in chemistry, you're going to care, right? You're going to study all night, and then you're going to go and going to ace it. If you're like, it doesn't really matter, I don't really care about this, I'm not going to apply myself with everything that I have. And for us, that's one of the biggest things. As coaches, we got to genuinely care, because it's feelings people feel if you care, if you just BS them to just get through the day. And for them, the same way to genuinely care about themselves, about their teammates, about the program, about everything that they do, because everyone is watching them. As you said, you're always being jealous of the student athletes. They don't know when people watch them. They don't know, they're role models for everyone else. And in a way, they are lucky because they do have that support system. They have that structure where, it's helping them, and it's not just out there, oh, let me go work out, let me call 5 buddies. They do have organized workouts. They have organized therapy sessions where they come and we talk about things and try to solve things and all that. But at the same time, it's a very hard lifestyle, because everything that you do is, the sports, it's school, and obviously always push them through that social life, or to always brand out, meet people, go out there, go make 5 new friends today. So, but at the end of it, I think it's care.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone in the panel here today. It's been great to hear from all of your perspectives. My question is related more to, I know that being an athlete and a student is basically like a mental roller coaster. You have some great days, but then you also have some days that sometimes you just can't. So I wanted to ask you, the students and both the coaches as well, how do you deal with the dissatisfaction of your performance sometimes? Sometimes disappointment.
5 minutes.
like I know way too many.
Definitely. First and foremost, that's my coach right there with the hat.
Hi, Coach Sully.
That's Coach Sully. Honestly, it sucks. Literally sucks. There's no other way to paint it. Once you are struggling, you know that you can do more, but it's just not working out. You just kind of want to scream, just quit. But it's good to, once you hit that rock bottom, to have coaches like Coach Sully, for example, like indoor conference that I had the other 2 weeks. I do, like I said, multiple events. After this, I had done really well in the first one, and then the second one was just not what it was supposed to be. And I ran to him and I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm just so mad. Like, what am I doing? And it was really cool. He does this a lot, but it's cool to see him kind of like say, hey, we got this. Like, we still have more things to do. It's not that bad. We did this. We can still build on it. And him instilling that confidence in me, just, it makes me feel way better. And it's like, okay, we got more things to do. We can't just dwell on the one thing. So it's really cool to have coaches like him where they can really, like, they show that they care and they do it day in and day out. Not just like at big meets, but like yesterday, I was just thinking, damn, like practice was like weird. Let me talk to him. So it's like, can I talk to him? He's like, yeah, let's meet. So it's like people like that they show that they care and they're there no matter what day or time. It's really cool to have.
I also do track and field. Let me stop. I've definitely have a lot of, I feel like when past couple of years, coach is gonna say something different, but I feel like it's been really low for me because I'm the type of person, I'm gonna put the time to do what I need to do. Like, once you tell me what to do, I will show up and I will do it, and I'll give 110% whenever I need to. And as a sport for track and field, it's a really weird sport because as a thrower, you only get 3 throws. 3 throws, you get the chance to try to make finals to get 3 more throws. You don't make finals, that's it for you. Wrap it up, go home, go to sleep. That's all you get. And it's just really hard because it's like knowing that you know you have more in you, and especially if you've been showing it at practice, you know what you can do. And the meet, that one meet, everything is just weird. You forgot how to turn. You don't know how, like, you've been doing this all your life and you step in the circle, you don't even know what the heck you're doing anymore. And those moments are definitely hard. And those 2 coaches, they're the best coaches that I have. And they last year conference, I was supposed to win the whole thing, and child, I didn't even scratch the surface to make it to finals, y'all. And I was like, dang, it just really happened. I really thought I was dreaming because I was like, this can't be for real. Like, there has to be fake. Like, where's the camera? There has to be a prank somewhere. And then after I was like, okay, cool, that just happened. It's kind of like Coach has a rule, like he said, is it the 5-minute rule?
5-minute rule.
So you got 5 minutes to cry, celebrate, whatever the heck you got to do. But after the 5 minutes, it's over. You can't really change after that. But it was really hard for me in that conference because I know I had so much more in me. And that was one of the meets where the body was like, no, I'm not doing it. And I was like, please, I need you. But after that letdown, it was pretty hard. And then I cried my eyes out the whole day. And then at first I was like, I'm going to wait till I get to the hotel, let it out, set the scene, like, cry. And then there was like, Mick. I was like, like knowing that they understand like the pain that I was experiencing in that moment made me feel so much better. So yeah, having that support system with you and knowing that every day is not going to be a best day. And even then you give yourself 5 minutes, you cry, you cheer, what the heck do you got to do? And then move on because you can't change it.
So to put some perspective on this, because I'd love to say this story. It was like, she was like, Coach, just give me a second. And I forget what I said. And then the tears came. But the 5-minute rule, it's like you get a chance, 5 minutes to celebrate a success or 5 minutes to kind of be sad about a failure and then move on. And for her, and she's very, as you can see, the pressure on herself. She's an All-American athlete. She went to the national championship and placed in the top 10. She got a chance to represent Haiti over the summer and was the first athlete ever to get 2 medals for Haiti in an international competition. She's up here talking like she hasn't accomplished anything. And I think that, and this just kind of is my perspective as a coach, our women athletes are so much harder on themselves than our men. Our men get over stuff quick. And it is, and Coach Sully up there as well was an All-American athlete. He got over it pretty quick if it didn't go his way. But our women have put so much more pressure on themselves. And we as a staff just realized we don't need to put any pressure on our athletes. They're going to do plenty on their own. And so, as she's sitting up here and telling her story, the following 2 weeks later, she went out and had the best throw of her life, and then did it again 2 weeks later at the national championship. And I'm not trying to sit up here and advertise and market her brand, but she, again, just is that example of there is a lot of pressure out there that our student athletes, and especially our women's student athletes, are placing on themselves, where we as coaches are like, we just kind of have to sit back and I tell them all the time, we're not directing or driving the ship. We're just saying, hey, watch out for the iceberg. That's it. So I think that a lot of times our female student athletes are doing everything right. And it's just, sometimes you have to kind of keep an eye out for the mental pressures that come with it. And, so Mick and Fabi both have done an amazing job. And again, just the pressures they put on themselves, like we don't have to tell them what to do too often.
I think for us it's a little bit different. We're obviously a team sport. So when you mess up or you're not having the best day, you're also reflecting on the 5 people around you that are on your side. So if you're not playing good, then it all builds up. So mental toughness is a huge part of our sport. You can't dwell on, we call it goldfish, mind. You let it go, immediately. Something happens and it's gone because someone's serving at you 5 seconds later. You don't have time to think about that. And I think it's a huge thing that we get told by our coaches, to let things go, move on. Don't make the same mistake over and over, but also give yourself grace. Know that things happen. And also it's really nice to have a team supporting you, that you mess up and you're immediately greeted with high fives and hey, you got it, don't worry, just do this or whatever. But mental toughness, definitely a huge thing, any part of a student athlete. I think sometimes you're I don't want to go today. I don't want to get up at 6 a.m. and go to lift. I don't want to go to practice for 3 hours. I don't want to go to that class after practice. But you not showing your team that, you not showing even yourself that, being let it go. It's gone. You're you have something to do. And I think that's just being a student, honestly, anything you're doing in life needs mental toughness. So that's why I'm so glad that we're being taught that now.
Yeah. With that, I'd say being part of a team and obviously the whole game goes off of everyone playing together, and you can't play it by yourself. It's just but putting pressure on yourself to be perfect for the people next to you, and then saying you messed up, you're really hard on yourself because you're oh my gosh, I just let my team down. But then like she said, them coming in and supporting you and giving you high fives, that's also a big thing. And then with that, realizing that everyone around you is making mistakes too. You could mess up, but the person next to you has probably done that 50 times too. So realizing that you're not the only one and that it's a team thing is huge.
As you can see through sports, our women learn how to become resilient, confident leaders, which will help them later on in life.
Yeah, and I think it's important too because we've seen a trend from Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, who really took time to focus on their mental health when it wasn't as popular, to really say, I need time to disconnect in certain ways because I know how important it is for me to continue to show up for myself so I can show up on the court in certain ways. I think we had one more, we have time for maybe one more question before we close out. Yes.
To give some context for this question, I'm definitely going to steal the 5-minute rule. I love
It's a good one.
My sister, she ran track and field all throughout high school. Then she ended up playing college softball in Illinois, the University of Louisiana, and then ended up her last year here at FIU. And, watching her my whole life invest just all of her effort in sports, and even in her college career, she broke her leg, her wrist, came back, played. And to see all that just come to an end for her and now I'm watching her transition into, just adult life and doing whatever it is she does day in and day out. How do you guys help facilitate your students who have given just their whole life to their craft, and then, once the game's done, and I know some of you are trying to play professional, but for the handful of students who, have to just graduate from sports, how do you guys help them facilitate that transition?
I mean, it's more than a handful. The majority of student athletes are not going pro. I know the NCAA had a ad about it, like 95% of us are going pro in something other than sports. I think that just encouraging an identity that is not associated with sports is extremely important. When you look at, and again, I don't want to pick on football and basketball, but those are sports that are notorious for, this is your life, this is your job, you do this, you do this, you do this, and then they graduate and it's like, will someone tell me what to do? There's no independence there, there's no guidance, there's not preparation for that next step. And I think that, like Fabiola is going to be on our staff next year as a graduate assistant, and hopefully Mick will be in a couple years as well, or maybe she'll be in Europe throwing very far. Maybe I'll go there too, we'll see. But, it really is just about creating an identity for those student athletes that is outside of sports. If every single conversation we had with a student athlete was centered around their performance and their sport, we would be doing a disservice to them. You don't come in and say, hey, are you going to be a great athlete today? It's like, hey, what's going on? How's class? How's your family? How's, I ask mixed mothers in Haiti, how's she doing? What's going on? Hey, how's, you watch any TV shows lately? And as you start to view them as more than just athletes, because we have the term student athletes. I mean, they're not just students and athletes. There's a social life outside of that. They might work. They might have all these other things going on in their lives. And if you connect your identity too much to being an athlete and that gets taken away from you at some point, whether it's through the end of your career or graduation or an injury or something, it's very difficult. And the mental health struggles that, despite, what Coach Robertson said of our student athletes being so resilient, if they attach too much of their identity in the world to being an athlete, it's hard. I've been associated with track and field for about 25 years of my life. I would struggle very badly if it was gone, and so it's just become a part of my identity. And I think that for our student athletes, understanding that we have to check out sometimes and we have to kind of create that separation. I mean, we tell them all the time, hey, you need a day today? And they're always like, no, I'm fine. It's like, take a day, like go be someone other than an athlete. I think that trying to create that balance in life doesn't tip the scales too far in one direction. And, I think at least us as what we call the non major revenue sports of like a football or basketball, we're afforded that opportunity to kind of look at our student athletes as people, as opposed to, if you guys don't win, we lose our jobs. Our job here, and I believe this, is to support student athletes. And that doesn't always mean wins and losses. That doesn't always mean school records. It means that, are we taking someone from a situation and creating a better opportunity for them through graduation, through post, graduate studies, through careers opportunities. So if we get too caught up in performance, we get too caught up in their athletic side of things, they're going to graduate and have no direction in life. And that's where real problems can happen. And I think that these two are prepared to do whatever. I mean, like if Coach Sully and I drop dead tomorrow, they'll be fine. I don't even think anyone would notice. So, I think that the independence we can create through them and the identity that they can create outside of their sport is really what comes down to that transition.
Yeah. I mean, for them to understand that they just play volleyball and it's not, I'm just a volleyball player. I'm Savannah, I'm Maddie, and I play volleyball and everything else that Coach said. And I think we have on top of us, for us it's the same. Our job is to give them the best experience that they can get in college, to graduate and have a life after. Our academic support at the SAC has helped us make them better people because they get them excited with career opportunities, with guidance in a professional life. So yes, maybe there's a little bit of sadness or more sadness or less sadness when they graduate, but I feel like our academic advisors have done such a great job of encouraging them, on top of us encouraging them to go do their masters, go get all these opportunities into a career that has made our life a little easier. So that's why all of our support system, it extends far beyond just us coaches. We have an army behind us to help us succeed so we can take better care of them, and being able to ask them, hey, how are you doing today? Because I know the academic advisor will be like, you have 5 tests tomorrow, you go for it, right?
So I want to, thank our amazing panelists for being here with us today and sharing you all's insight. I truly believe that we will continue to see strides in the field and in the court. So I want to leave you with some advice. One of my high school coaches, who I saw a few years once I got into my PhD program, and he left me with this when I was in a very transitional part of my life. And he said, Davis, in everything, show up with heart, but also show up. And that has led me to continue to show up for myself and for amazing women in so many different ways. So thank you all so much as we continue to celebrate Women Her Story Month and celebrate these amazing women. So.
Thank you.
No, you're good. One more time. There was so much that we didn't get to, so I just want to make sure that we do a plug for the Women Who Lead conference that is coming up today, March 20th. Tomorrow. So if you haven't already, students, this is a free event for you. Faculty, staff, community members, it is ticketed. So there's definitely more information for you if you'd like to look into that. One more time, thank you very much to the panelists for joining us and for Brittany for putting all of this together, because all of this outreach and getting all these people in this room at one time is never an easy thing. Thank you so much. Again, a reminder, we go online next week, so if you're joining us again, we can register for it online, and otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all.